And we're back. The Shrew Dudes return after a very, very long hiatus. We're very, very sorry for being away. We were abducted by aliens and had to take on troglodytes and sea monsters. Terrible, terrible stuff. But we're glad to be back. Yeah, yeah, we definitely turned the tables on them a little bit. But we're back and we're raring to go because I've been chomping at the bit. Champing at the bit. I'm not sure which one, but yeah. So we're gonna jump right into the news and just get right back into it. So today we got some cool stories. Richmond, north of Richmond, is now #1 story all across the country, or a song across the country, which is amazing kind of thing to do. There's a couple of stories we got to talk about. Hillary, which apparently after his strikes, everyone just commits suicide. And then there's Kelowna, which is basically hit close to home because a lot of my family lives there. And we're going to talk about how not only is the storm terrible, but the Canadian government is terrible and how they deal with this kind of crap. We're also going to talk about the whole situation in Maui, because Maui has been hit incredibly hard. It could potentially be the worst disaster to ever hit the United States, but not the worst natural disaster, because a lot of people are saying there's a lot of shenanigans going on over there. And then also in Canada, we got some residential school shenanigans. Trump is being indicted, but also Andy No got a little bit of revenge. We're going to cover that and so many more stories today on the Shrewd Dudes podcast. Kick it.
Kick it.
It doesn't work down.
Oh no, it's just needs to be resized. It's fine. Alrighty, so we are back for another Tuesday News Day, and yeah, it has been a while. I'll briefly detail all the reasons for why we missed days. So first off, 2 weeks ago on Tuesday, my internet completely was spotty and
super glitchy.
Super glitchy. I wouldn't have consistent internet for longer than 20 minutes at a time, and then it would dip down for about a minute, and then it would come back fine. And I'm like, well, most things that's okay for, but if we're doing a show where we have
a live
stream and we have live video,
that's so good.
No good.
No bueno. See, someone else is speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thursday, we were preparing for a camping trip, which was awesome.
Epic. Super epic.
Yeah, it was a great trip. Everybody enjoyed it.
I got to temporarily drown a young girl for about 3 seconds. It was pretty epic.
Okay, that's a very poor way of saying that you baptized one of our friends.
I was like, how can I frame this in a way that it sounds horrible, but it's actually an awesome
which is totally innocent. Yeah.
But the cool thing is that several people are in our group were watching, and they were like, "Oh, that's interesting. Tell me more."
Yeah, no, Cade was really interested. He's like, "I've never seen this before," and I'm like, "Yep." So that was, and Cade always asks me about stuff like that, so that's always fun. So we did that, and then last Tuesday, I was feeling really tired and overwhelmed, and I was just completely out of it on Tuesday. And
done.
I was done, son. Oh, for 3 days in a row, I came home from work and then I had a 3-hour nap.
Yep.
That was my day. It was just and then on Thursday, you were also having heat issues because
So we basically had you were totally done on Tuesday. Thursday, I was not just I'm oh, I can use a day off. I was my body was shutting down.
Yeah.
On Thursday, I got heat stroke, first time ever.
Yeah.
The physical
and
basically my body was basically cooking on the inside.
Oh yeah.
And so I was throwing up, and I was just absolutely I was basically a hot pocket. That's the best way I can put it. I was a hot pocket, like volcanic, temperature inside, but cold on the outside. I'm like, that's basically what I was.
And then it was sort of funny because one of the things that happened this past weekend So as you probably noticed, I had some people that were coming after me on the weekend.
Oh, you mean on the
on
website?
On Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh my gosh, you guys are nuts!"
I also commented on that.
You
Notice?
you did, yeah. It was funny. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm like, I don't remember making this post, and I'm like, oh yeah, Danny made that post.
I took Steven's identity for a day. It was great.
Well, you took the identity of
True dudes.
The podcast.
Yeah.
So, but that was totally interesting and fine.
So they went nuts after that.
Oh well, they were just going nuts all weekend. Like I think they all had different but very similar arguments.
Okay.
And so like the one that was I thought the weirdest was like this. It was a page that was dedicated to like the page was trying to put like share information about intersex individuals. Okay. I'm like, okay, interesting. And then they were trying to like, because I'm like, okay, well, there's no like genetic backing, there's no biological science to defend the existence of transgender individuals. It's non-exist.
Mm-hmm.
And then they linked this person. This person's like, oh, intersex people exist. That's a proven fact. And so therefore, trans people are genetic. And I'm like, no, that's not how that works.
Incorrect, sir.
And I'm incorrect. Like, intersex is a biological deformity.
Mm-hmm.
Transgenderism is a mental issue. The two are not the same. And if you actually compare, like, the people that are intersex and what they actually say that they identify as, it's like 7% of intersex people that identify as trans. It's not all intersex people identify as trans. Mm-mm. And then the craziest part, and I actually got really pissed at this because a whole bunch of them were laugh reacting to this, and I'm like, okay, that actually like really pees me. Yeah, they do, but they laugh reacted at a horrible thing. Hmm? So, you remember the famous story about the twins and John Money?
Yes, I do. I remember that.
Yeah, and like the one had a botched circumcision.
Yes.
They're like, oh yeah, the kid killed himself because of a botched circumcision. I'm like, no. The kid killed himself because the botched circumcision and John Money convinced the parents to raise that boy as a girl.
Yeah.
And then had them do like weird sexual stuff to each other. And then on top of like it was a whole bunch of stuff. And they're like, no, it wasn't anything to do with that. John Money was just exploring their gender identity, and it was entirely because of the botched circumcision. I'm like, are you insane? I'm like, what? I'm like, they didn't kill themselves because of something they did as a child. Mm-hmm. They killed themselves because a good portion of their lives was lived in a false reality, and then they took forever to come to grips with that, and the abuse that they suffered because of what a psychopath John Money was.
Mm-hmm. The problem is they come to a conclusion right away that our side is right. Mm-hmm. Then every argument that they made is defending that position. No matter how absurd the position is, they will hold it. It's very common. So like when I first interact with that post, like the one on the Facebook page, I was just like, okay, like these are just very simple. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a second here. I'm gonna do my thing. I'm gonna like quote them and like, literally like address every point they made and just gotta go with it. And and usually what you do is when you do that, all of their stuff falls apart. They don't know what to say. And they just laugh emoji, which is what they always do.
Oh yeah.
Laugh emoji, by the way, is basically evidence that they're not serious. That's the best way to know if somebody's not serious. If they're not worth engaging with, is to do the laugh emoji.
Oh yeah,
that just proves they're not.
Well, that was part of the funny. That was actually kind of funny because they're like, "Oh yes, like you're intellectually your podcast is intellectually inferior," and I'm like, "You want to engage?" I'm like, "We have an open mic night. You're free to engage," and they're like, "No, you're just punching down. I'm like, literally, you said that we were beneath you. How are we punching down to someone to someone above us? It's like you're very inconsistent.
Yep. My favorite thing was like I basically pointed out the hypocrisy of like, it's funny how the people who always preach love and tolerance and kindness are usually like the meanest and like most harsh people ever kind of thing. Funny how that works,
The intolerance of the tolerant left.
Oh yeah, yeah. They always claim to be the I'm like, you might want to check your high horse there. It's definitely not still
You
alive.
might want to get off it.
That's right. Yeah, it's like squished.
It's dead.
It's dead, squished.
Anyways, we should move on to the stuff that we want to talk about.
Let's get into it, man.
So we'll start off with
Ben the Shapiro.
Okay, I made this work. Why has that disappeared? Stupid.
You have no video now.
I will fix it.
You got this, Steven. You got this.
There we go. I got it.
He's got the power.
And more. All right, so this is a little short from Ben Shapiro saying the tables have turned.
Anyone can come to the U.S. Like
Absolutely. If you go to New York, go to the Statue of Liberty, what's it say? All is welcome.
Nope.
I don't think it says that, but dude, this is great because I just happened to pick up 3 guys from Honduras. Well, they were at Home Depot. They're from Honduras and they have nowhere to go. So
He's
this just worked out
terrified.
perfect. Look, Hector takes medication twice a day. And right now they got to use the bathroom. All 3 of them go to
Baño, por favor. Gracias.
Is it cool they stay here?
No.
Why not? What do you mean?
I don't know them. Who are they?
All right, so they can't stay here then? It's cool if they come to the country, just not your house.
No,
Come on, bro. Come on.
Come on, bro.
Let's go, guys. Let's go.
Oh,
Sorry,
come on,
man.
bro.
Hypocrite.
It's so silly, but so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Did
Did you by chance?
Yep.
Did you by chance watch the Tim Caps Tyrell on Friday?
No.
With Laura Loomer
Okay.
was in the studio, and she actually said that she did something similar with Nancy Pelosi.
Oh yeah.
She brought like a whole bunch of like migrants to her house because she was like saying like like we all need to be compassionate and bring people in because they're special.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, let's do that. So she literally brought them to Nancy Pelosi's house.
Yeah. Oh,
So
it's funny how they troll them like that. It's just so
Mhm.
funny. Yeah, there was I think it was last week. It was like the city of New York was like the city of New York is not equipped to handle like the 5,000 migrants which we have, and it's like, oh really? And Texas is somehow equipped to handle 20 million.
Here, no, do this. Do a quick search on Google here.
Okay.
Type in Laura Loomer, migrants Pelosi. It should come right up.
The Daily Beast.
No. Go. It should be from Daily Wire.
I'll look up.
Oh, you're. So I thought. Oh, hold on. I typed. What did I type in? I typed in Laura Loomer, Pelosi, migrant. Oh, I just did it backwards.
Okay.
Laura Loomer,
This
Pelosi,
is in
migrants.
2019.
Yeah. So this happened back then, but I'm like, I'm curious. She talked about it, and I'm kind of curious what this actually.
Doesn't have video
That
from
one?
it.
No.
It's
Oh, they might. I wonder if they removed it because like it's Laura Loomer.
yeah.
But yeah, just so you know, because she did the same thing, and apparently, like Nancy Pelosi was pissed.
Oh, I'm sure she
We
was.
thought that was really funny. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, but
take that, Nancy.
can't talk about being pissed off forever. There's some good things to celebrate, such as this interesting phenomenon
He's
of
back.
Oliver Anthony. "Rich Men North of Richmond" is America's #1 song as country dominates the charts for a second time in history.
That's amazing. Go. Oh man, so happy for this guy. This guy. definitely
Gut-wrenching
deserves-
anthem was released on August 11th and hit the #1 spot on Monday, according to Billboard. The song released 15.5 million streams and sold 147,000 downloads as of August 17th. It was not promoted to radio. It also received 553,000 radio airplay audience impressions. "Rich Men North of Richmond" also hit the #1 on digital song sales chart. Billboard noted the hopelessness and frustration of our times resonate in the response to the song. The song itself is not anything special, but the people who have supported it are incredible and deserve to be heard, Anthony told Billboard.
Yeah. Apparently this song broke this whole thing broke complete records.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've never had an artist that has
was
no
basically
history,
virtually unknown,
virtually
go to
nobody.
the number one.
Go to the number one like immediately, most people have to build up
Mm-hmm.
to be able to get there, and they don't. And even then, they don't even hit number one. Like, do you remember? Okay, Steven, do you remember that lady? She was on. I don't know if it's America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent.
I know who you're talking about.
That she looks kind of like older.
She was not pretty looking, but she had an
Not pretty
amazing
looking.
voice.
Ridiculously cool voice, and so when people heard her, like, oh my goodness, they signed her to a contract and all that.
Was it?
And so
Didn't
she actually
sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow?
She sang a song called "I Dreamed the Dream."
Okay.
From Les Miserables.
Okay.
Tough song, and even Simon, when he heard that, he's like, okay, tough song, which he didn't think she could do it, but she did.
I remember the lady's name.
I don't remember, but that's an example of a total unknown coming out of nowhere and jumping straight to like a recording contract, right? So she was short lived, and even when her song came out, it was big, but it wasn't like like as huge as this song was. But yeah, Oliver
Susan
Anthony
Boyle, there it is.
Yeah, that's right, Susan Boyle. Second you said it, I was like, yeah, it's Susan Boyle, definitely.
Yeah, Susan Boyle.
Go girl.
She is. I remember hearing her first song, and I was like, "Woo, that was amazing."
She did really, really well.
She did.
It was
She did.
amazing. Yeah.
But this guy, it's been interesting because more people are resonating with this guy's not so much his vocal work, which is good, but they're resonating with the message of his song because, of course, it is a message that modern mainstream music are not allowed to tell. Like,
yeah,
you think it's like, oh yeah, like try that in a small town, that's controversial. It's like, oh well, sort of, but he's only hinting at things, and he's not really. He's just saying it's like, well, like small town values are different than big city values. That's pretty obvious. Whereas this guy is openly saying, and he's like, yep, the government is the problem, and a lot of the stuff the government does makes things a lot more difficult because the government won't stop spending money, it won't stop doing this, it won't stop doing that. And I remember there was a video that I kind of came across yesterday, and it was this guy, he's like, oh, like, Oliver, like, you have the right heart, but you have the wrong message. Like, the government is the problem, it's all rich people. And so
that's Rainn Wilson. Rainn Wilson.
Yes.
Rainn Wilson from The Office. Like, I heard about that.
There was a different one. This one wasn't as popular.
I know Rainn Wilson was criticizing the song, saying like you should really like he should have written it about like the rich and how like the billionaires that are the problem. It's like, oh my gosh, like this is why people in Hollywood have no they do not resonate with regular people because they are so out of touch.
Yeah,
but the song is amazing. Like like here, if you actually go on Twitter, and just type in the name of the song remix. There's been like a lot of remixes that have been done. Like this. Have you heard some of the remixes? Like they're amazing. Like people are already like redoing the song because it's just such a fantastic song. So just type in Richmond remix. Yeah, so this is the most popular one, and it's actually really good. Like play. It's a very short little piece.
Daughters and sons and they nurse all of our family while we are traveling, trying to get paychecks and work hard. I don't know how much longer I can take this. Only looks like I got half of my paycheck. How can I explain this all to a baby? I know I'll read it, the statement you gave me. Dear Mr. Lot, know you've been working daily around the clock. Gotta provide for the family you got. But you laid off, sincerely your boss, I'm sorry. Isn't that sounding outrageous? How about you go home and say that? Go to your daughter and tell her you broke, cause when your boss would give you some change, you would take it. I am not one to just take it. I am not one to be lazy. Earn what I get, I put days in. I am just one my payment.
Lord, it's a damn shame.
Dang it. That's like the most popular one. But like if you just scroll down, there's like so many people doing remixes.
Yeah.
But it just shows that this song has like absolutely like resonated with so many people in so many amazing ways. It's awesome. It's like people have said this song is essentially the song equivalent of Sound of Freedom. Like Sound of Freedom is touching people hard because it resonates to a real deep truth. And this song is basically like the version of that. Like it's pointing out to a real tragedy, a real like a real hurt that people are seeing or experiencing and all that, right? So yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how they've just really they've really tapped in. So yeah, good on on Oliver Anthony. He's done a fantastic job.
Yep.
And yeah, it's always difficult like with artists. Like the music industry it can be such a scam. And they can like rope you into like all sorts of crazy contracts, even like take away the rights to your song. So I'm really glad that John Rich is helping him to navigate that whole thing. John Rich is amazing.
Yep.
Super
John
happy
Rich
with
has
the
been
guy.
great.
Yeah.
Anyways,
next
let's
story.
move on to the next one.
Another guy that's resonating.
I'll interestingly enough, I have things to say about that.
Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yes. So Vivek Ramaswamy gives LGBTQ plus reporter a reality check.
Yeah, have you heard? Have you seen this interview?
No, I have not.
It's good. That's going to be a cold open.
So a pansexual LGBTQIA activist approached me at the Iowa State Fair with a question. Okay, let's check it.
Go for it.
What were your opinions on the LGBTQ plus community?
I don't think it's one community.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, how could it be? You just mash together an alphabet soup. Trans is fundamentally in tension with gay, if you ask me. But what's your opinion?
I'm personally pansexual, so I was just wondering what your views on same-sex couples were.
I don't have a negative view of same-sex couples, but I do have a negative view of a tyranny of the minority. So I think that in the name of protecting against a tyranny of the majority, and there are times in this country's history where we have had a tyranny of the majority, we have now, in the name of protecting against tyranny of the majority, created a new tyranny of the minority. And I think that that's wrong. I don't think that somebody who's religious should be forced to officiate a wedding that they disagree with. I don't think somebody who is a woman who's worked really hard for her achievements should be forced to compete against a biological man in a swim competition. I don't think that somebody who's a woman that respects her bodily autonomy and dignity should be forced to change clothes in a locker room with a man. That's not freedom, that's oppression. And so I believe that we live in a country where free adults should be free to dress how they want, behave how they want, and that's fine. But you don't become oppressive by foisting that on others. And that especially includes kids, because kids aren't the same as adults. And so I think adults are free to make whatever choices they want, but do not foist that ideology onto children before children are in a position as adults to make decisions for themselves. And so I think a lot of the frustration in the country, and if I'm being really honest, that I also share, comes from that new culture of oppression where saying those things can actually get somebody punished. And in my case, it's part of why it's my responsibility to say them. And I respect that you may have a different opinion, and that's okay. Part of what makes our country great is that you and I can be civil and have this conversation, and that we live in a country that still gives us, each of us, the right to speak to a presidential candidate and back, and still say that we pledge allegiance to the same nation. So I think that's the beauty of our country, and that's my honest opinion.
Awesome. Well,
Thanks.
thank you very much. Appreciate
Nailed it. That is one of the best answers I've ever heard.
It is a very good answer.
Super. It's difficult to be angry at that answer, even if you're a lefty.
Oh yeah.
You're like, okay, they can kind of like disagree, but you can't really fault him anywhere like in that answer. Like it's really well done.
Yeah,
the guy thinks on his feet, and he has solid answers and all that. So, but what do you think about just we're touching on this? So Vivek is kind of like surging right now.
Yes.
What do you think about the potential, like what's going to happen obviously on Thursday? Because Thursday we're going to have the Republican, debates.
Yep.
And at the same time, they're going to have the Tucker interview with Trump.
Yep.
Which is going to be crazy.
Well, it's not going to be a live interview.
No, it's not.
It's just
still gonna premiere at the same time.
Yeah, it's going to premiere at the same time.
What are your What are your predictions about the debate?
Oh, it's going to be everybody aiming for DeSantis.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so you think they'll spend more time talking, going after DeSantis than they will
100%.
Trump?
The only
Okay.
one, there's going to be two candidates who are going to go after Trump.
Okay.
There's going to be DeSantis and there's going to be Christie.
Yeah, Christie for sure. And DeSantis, yeah, makes sense.
And they have valid arguments for why. Like, I understand why he's not going, but it's also going to give a lot of ammunition to the Democrats if he is actually allowed to run in the general.
Who's this? DeSantis?
No, Trump.
Trump.
If they allow him to run in the general, then yeah, they'll use the exact same line of arguments for why Trump isn't showing up in these debates, for why Biden doesn't have to show up to the other ones.
You know, it's funny. I actually did listen to Ben Shapiro do a full rundown about the debates and about Trump and about all the candidates and all that. And I was like, you know, I never actually really listened to Shapiro talk about it, and I'm like, it's like how to argue, how to argue or talk about the political candidates while trying not to seem like you're in any way biased or have already chosen your candidate. And I'm like, he does a good job because I mean he basically makes it abundantly clear that he is not pro Trump at all. He does not like Trump.
Oh no.
And he actually doesn't even like Ramaswamy that much, actually.
No, I will. I was listening to, and I've actually soured quite a bit on Ramaswamy. Like the things that I've been looking up the past few weeks, I was like, huh. Like,
any examples?
Ben Shapiro made a very good point about him flip flopping, but when you flip flop, when you change an opinion on a subject, then. I've changed my opinion on a few things, sure, and I'll be very open about about how I changed my opinion on that.
Okay.
I did not like, and I'll actually highlight. There's a Forbes article about this.
Okay.
And so Wikipedia editor said they were paid to change Vivek Ramaswamy's page.
Okay.
So you cannot change your own Wikipedia page, but you can change someone else's.
Okay.
And so he changed two things. Now, one of them, I don't fault him for receiving the Paul and Daisy Soros Fellowship for New Americans, because they
receiving that.
Yeah, I don't fault him for receiving it because they just gave it to him.
Yeah, you also know that he sued for that. Against
he
that,
did.
Right?
He did. This one I do have an issue with. His role in the Ohio COVID-19 response team.
Okay.
What he advocated for while he was a part of the Ohio COVID-19 response team, it was scary stuff.
Well, what did he advocate for?
Well, he was advocating so that people would there would be extreme levels of government surveillance of average citizens.
Okay.
Basically you'd have to check in and check out of places. That's what he was suggesting. And then he's kind of paid a lot of sources to kind of cover that up.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's I had to do a lot of digging, and I was like, there was this guy who had this fairly long thread about it. I was like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. And then his connections about Pfizer and all the pharmaceutical companies are a whole other thing. But I'm like, okay, dude, if you were involved in this, then say you were involved in it, say you made mistakes, move on, move forward. I'm like, the fact that you're paying people off to try and hide this from your supporters, it stings of just a lot of disingenuous behavior.
I guess it depends, because all we know, like the facts, all we know, from what you've described, is that okay, somebody somewhere paid somebody at Wikipedia money to change to adjust the page or something like that, which I'm not too shocked, because to be fair, you and I both know that Wikipedia tends to be very shady in how they describe people anyways. So and so it makes you wonder, okay, so we don't know why he removed it, but I'm like, well, I mean, so far I'm like, okay, well, maybe there is some reason why he's removing that. Maybe it was overblown, or I don't know. I can think of a multiplicity of reasons why somebody might be wanting their information removed, or maybe something kind of not not like that. The nefarious angle could be true, but it could also just be like just speculation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like the idea that he's trying to hide it. Well, maybe he has a better reason. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
why, like removing the stuff from like the
Mm-hmm.
WEF Soros kind of stuff. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, if you know the full story, you understand that, like, that was
that part I was like, okay, like that wasn't his fault that he got added to that list.
right. But we don't know as much about the Ohio stuff and why
Yeah,
he
like
removed it.
that part is like, it's so difficult to find any information that he was even a part of it.
Mhm.
It's like, that's really weird. Like, it's,
Well, you say you saw a video of him like
no,
advocating
like there
for
was there was a it was it was basically like this article in the Wayback Machine, and then that article is no longer like you can't find that article anymore. And I don't know the link to the Wayback Machine. It was on this guy's Twitter page, and I'm like, dang it, I wish I could find this guy again, because he had like this very long thread about it, and I was like, holy crap, like this is crazy. And then I've been trying to find it ever since.
So the quotes that you said about how him supporting and calling for these things, these are just quotes from somewhere, but we don't know
Well,
where.
like these are quotes from this article,
Okay.
but I haven't been able to find it since. And like
it's kind of,
searching for it is virtually impossible.
I guess that's the thing. Like, well, it's kind of like it's kind of like at this point, this is the way I look at it. It's kind of like with Trump, with DeSantis, with every like Republican candidate like this. I'm like, when I hear like allegations, I'm like, I almost always assume, I'm like, you know what, he is innocent until I have really solid proof that he's actually guilty of this thing.
Well, like the allegations about like his supposed claims about 9/11 were like, okay, that's like blown way out of the water.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
way out of proportion. So
yeah.
So
I
have to continue looking for this, because
I will
know
say
that I was like, my mind was blown on this one, because I was like on this trip and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I will say I was very surprised listening to the debate on the culture war on Friday. It was Laura Loomer and some other, like a pro DeSantis guy or whatever.
Yeah.
And Laura Loomer kept pulling out all of these like things that I was like, oh, I didn't know about that. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, like, holy crap! Like, she had a lot of information. Now, granted, I have to go and verify it, because I don't doubt that she pulled this out of somewhat legitimate, but to look into it. But it does sound bad, and I'm like, wow, that actually doesn't sound very good. Like, for example, the idea that DeSantis, or at least the government and DeSantis, whatever, they were trying to pass a law that would that sounds like it would mean it's on the surface sounds like it would basically ban you from criticizing DeSantis unless you're registered as a blogger, I think it was. So it's like I know it's a law. Like, they talked about it on the show. They even looked up the article, but yeah, it was a law. And on the surface, when you read it, you're like, that sounds really bad. Basically, if you want to like be able to say something negative about the governor, it sounds like you have to get like some kind of registration or something like that. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't sound very good. Then she claimed that he brought and opened an office for like the deep state, or like an agency of the deep state in Florida itself, which I was like, well, that's not good. Like, if he's supposed to be like, draining the swamp, but he's actually like, bringing the swamp to Florida. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. So a couple of things I was like, that's interesting. I just assumed that like DeSantis was just, I don't know, squeaky clean. And then I'm finding out like, oh, okay, there's some things there that are a little odd. There was even some finagling in how they got around the rules about how to fundraise and where to send your money. So I think we're going to find out more and more about these candidates. With Trump, we pretty much know what we got. We know exactly.
Yeah.
We know his history, right? With DeSantis and with Ramaswamy, I think we're going to find out more, because now the grave diggers are going to start looking for dirt, and so we're going to start seeing a lot. So yeah, batting the hatches, man, batting the hatches.
Yeah, it's going to be it'll be an interesting debate. I'll give it that.
Mhm.
It'll be somewhat interesting to watch. The
We're gonna
highlights
have a
of.
lot of we're gonna have a lot of interesting sound bites.
Yeah,
which
there'll be some good sound bites from it.
What are we gonna do on Thursday for that? We're gonna be live when that happens, right?
No, it's the debate's tomorrow.
Wednesday?
Yeah, it's tomorrow.
I thought it was Thursday. Oh.
No. That's why Trump is not going to hand himself in until Thursday, until after the debates.
Okay.
Because then he'll want to live truth. Him poking
by the
fun
way-
at basically
by the way,
DeSantis and Christie.
Something I found out is that the debate is happening not only on Fox, but it's also live streaming on Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was pretty cool. So
good.
like a lot of people who can't watch on Fox because they don't have like a TV subscription,
Yeah.
you can watch it on Rumble. So yeah.
Well, I'm
definitely
sure
go check
Fox will also live stream it on YouTube. So
Well, we'll see. Yeah, well, it's good to have options.
yeah.
Okay, well, let's go with this next story, man.
Anyways, let's look into Hurricane Hillary. And not the Clinton
not
corrupt person.
Not the former candidate for president.
So, Hillary is set to cause serious flooding in Southern California's first tropical storm in 84 years as LA evacuates homeless and Navy scrambles warships to help. So, rapidly grew to Category 4 strength, move upward into Tijuana. Before hitting Southern California, the U.S. National Hurricane Center warned of catastrophic and life-threatening flooding as the storm could bring up to 10 inches of rain in some areas.
Yeah, it's gonna be
So,
bad, man.
like, this is it's so interesting because, like, people talk about, it's like, oh my gosh, like BC and Alberta, it's like these are drought-like conditions, and it's like, yeah, but like other places around the world have seen more rain than ever before.
Yeah.
I'm like, so don't say this like, oh my gosh, like all this extra heat is the cause of climate change, and it's like, no, it's just the patterns shift as they move around the globe.
Wait, did you read that article I posted about the Tonga volcano?
No.
Matt Walsh even talked about it, and that's where I heard about it. I was like, I never heard about it. I won't go into big detail, but basically there was a volcano, an underwater volcano that exploded or erupted.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, in 2022. But when I read the NASA article, they were saying this volcano threw so much water vapor into the stratosphere, like such a massive amount. They were basically predicting that would temporarily raise the temperatures on Earth for several years. And I was like, what?
Yeah,
Like,
that's crazy.
Holy crap. That basically, because I mean, it's undeniable that like there's been a bit of a heat wave this summer. And so I was like, okay, of course they're gonna run with that. But then you find out like, oh, there's an actual volcanic eruption that caused that. It's like, well, that's a little more scientific than the climate change kind of like Chicken Little alarmism.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about climate change as the Ooga Booga factor.
The Ooga Booga.
Yeah, because climate change is the Ooga Booga factor. So is there a timestamp where you want me to start this video about Kelowna?
Play it from the beginning, and then we don't have to play the whole thing, but I just want to show people this happened in my hometown. My hometown. This past week, the day I was super sick, I also got a message from my sister saying they were about to like go all the way back.
Pretty bad.
Well, this is
pretty
early.
You missed the opening.
Very, very.
It is pretty epic how he did the opening. I was like, dang, that's cool.
So
this is a guy.
The sky is not a cloud; it's a smoke, and actually, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Also, it feels very, very windy today, which is very bad for the fire. It means that
the winds were
fire
brutal.
is going to the city.
Is this guy on a one wheel?
He's on dirt bike.
Look at this smoke, and you can see the scale of it. It's
he went up to Knox Mountain. So you skip forward to Knox Mountain, which is go to the 328 mark.
Okay.
Yeah.
Going on right now.
And then a little further. Yeah, you can see the fires.
That's crazy.
There is a building.
Of course, they're burning all over. They're burning all over the.
I actually heard a crazy story.
Wildfire is coming down.
Hello, Kissing.
So you can mute it and we can talk about it in the background.
So I heard a crazy story. So from one of my coworkers, because his family is also from Kelowna, and they had to evacuate their house. And they're like, "Oh, well, we will row out to the lake." and like hold each other's boats together.
God.
And it was funny because so the wind kind of blew and it blew over their boats and tipped them upside down. And so they're kind of hanging on to the boats. And and he says like this seems crazy, but my coworker, like my family members and my friends that I know.
Uh-huh.
And so he said that they kind of floated closer to shore. And then a bear came up under, like as the wildfire came down to the lake, a bear came under the water and popped its head up under the boat with them. And they're just like,
what?
There's a bear?
What the heck?
And then apparently like the bear just like kept checking out to see if it was safe. And then apparently the bear just went away and they're like, okay, I guess it's all right now.
Okay.
It's like, what the heck?
Well, that's one thing I hear a lot of people always say, that one thing you never think about when there's major fires or things like that, disasters, is that a lot of the animals like basically are fleeing the fire, and so watch out for wild animals because they will come down. I actually talked to my sister. They went down. So what happened is this fire came out of nowhere. I don't know if you could go, maybe go to like the. They might have it on Twitter. They have like a map, a heat map of the wildfires, and they show you like exactly how fast it exploded. So, like,
in Kelowna?
Yeah, so Kelowna, NASA heat map, I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah, so go type in Kelowna NASA heat map.
So these are just red dots.
Okay. Yeah, so here let me explain to you what happened. So for those of you who don't know what Kelowna looks like, or like the actual area, so the bridge that connects Kelowna on west side, on the left side of the map is where the major fire went, and on the right side, the fire literally jumped over the lake. My sister was talking to my niece, and she's like, "Oh, okay, like are we in any danger?" And my sister's like, No, honey. Like, fires don't, like, it's too far. Like, fires can't jump over lakes. And like an hour later, they're like, by the way, like, like a latest update, the fire seems to have jumped the lake. And now it's like, on the McKinley Landing, which is in Kelowna or north of Kelowna. And my niece is like, Mom! And she's like, I guess I don't know that much about wildfires, apparently. But apparently, yeah, like the fire went nuts. It decimated, like, it went from like very short, like it went from a very small fire to a massive fire in one night. The Kelowna, so the West Kelowna police chief basically said it was like the most horrific night they've ever experienced, because you can't imagine the actual the carnage that this fire wreaked on the entire thing. So, by the way, anyone who doesn't know, Kelowna had a major like wildfire event in 2003, which is exactly 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, they had a major wildfire south of Kelowna, and tons of houses and tons of properties were destroyed. People are now saying that this one is worse. Like, this one's like size wise and damage wise, it's likely going to be a lot worse. There's a place called West Lake Okanagan Resort, which is on the west side of the lake. It's been there for age. It was there when I first came to Calgary, or to Kelowna, in 1988, and it's gone, totally burned out, totally destroyed, ain't coming back. It was insane. I've never seen anything like the pictures that they've shown from the wildfire. Can you actually go to like can you go to like Twitter and just type in Kelowna wildfire, like, because they're actually showing some of the stuff that's happening here. It's insane. So like some of the there's like just type in Kelowna wildfires. Like, there's just one video that really kind of has been going viral because it's so crazy how insane these wildfires spread. Oh, there it is. Truth poll. I finally found a video of the NASA. time lapse thing and all that. But yeah, like if you scroll down, Kelowna wildfires, right? Yeah, there's the video right there. Whatnot. That's a picture.
Oh, this is a video.
That's the one. That one. These people escaped on a boat.
Yeah, like that's.
Get out of that. So like, the wind was insane. My sister went to downtown Kelowna just to watch the fires from across the lake. The wind was so strong it was blowing people over. Like people walking were like literally being tossed by the wind, by the strength of the wind. It was insane how powerful and how strong that wind was. So yeah, it was a crazy night. Thankfully, the first day was the only insane one. But yeah, take the second video and they kind of give you a quick little recap of the damage that happened from the wildfire, and then we can move on from there.
Okay.
The YouTube video.
The YouTube video? Well, I was.
Oh, did you just put it randomly, or?
I played a little bit of it.
Yeah, like put the guy basically talks about it. Yeah, this let's see. Put it at the 35 second.
In the affected, here to support those individuals, those families that have lost homes. I know it's going to take a while for recovery, but we're here to support in any way we possibly can. I guess on the flip side, well, there's been a lot of homes that have been saved by the work of the firefighting crews, but it doesn't take away from the anguish and the anxiety for those individuals that may not have a home to go back to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And with all of the peripheral damage along with those homes, it's likely going to make this recovery phase that is to come kind of a central focus for your municipality for a long time to come, I'm thinking.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, we need to gather a lot more information as to the impact of the wildfire in the affected communities. But that's what our focus is to help our citizens that have impacted today and to help them over the months and years to come, for sure.
The neighborhoods that we have yet to visit are the ones.
But they basically counted about what do you call it? They counted about 50 houses minimum, and then it's just gonna skyrocket from there because there's so many properties that were damaged and all that. But okay, so the fires were devastating. Thankfully, they weren't as bad as they could have been. Lots of my friends were affected. Quick question: what do you think the number one thing that people on the weekend were saying, like on Twitter, about the fires?
The number one thing liberals were, of course, saying this was linked to the climate.
The boogie boogie boogie. The boogie boogie boogie. That's right. But here's another thing that was trending this weekend that a lot of people were pointing out. This is by no means the only person that pointed this out, but this was a prominent one that was making the round. So yeah, play the video.
Okay.
Another ounce of Justin Trudeau in this country. So the area that I live in is literally on fire. People are being evacuated. Wildfires everywhere. And you see this right here? You go to CTV News, and us as Canadians, we can't even see what is going on in our country because of new laws that Justin Trudeau has passed. We can't see it. So what? Has this turned into a communist country now? I don't have any words. I am so done with Canada. Just so done.
Yep. No, like, and we of course didn't have the same thing happen to us, but we had some serious problems going on in regards to sharing other forms of media. And we had some serious problems with trying to get around the Facebook ban on news.
Yeah.
And trying to still share information without our post being completely deleted altogether. Now, of course, I tried to share several links, and I think in the end, I tried to share about 10 links, and only one went through, and it was like from the government of Australia. Because Facebook apparently didn't ding that one. But it was interesting because Facebook actually started dinging posts, and I mentioned this to you, Danny, before the show. If you actually typed out news events that were happening or have happened, Facebook would flag it and say, you can't post this because this is about a news story.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Can't even make a reference to a news story.
Can't even make a reference. It's absolutely obscene.
Yeah. But did you, I did actually like find a workaround, and I thought it might actually be really helpful to a lot of people. So I actually like shared it on Facebook. But basically, I found a way to bypass the blockade, which is using Twitter. But you basically have to post whatever news story you want onto your own Twitter page, and then just link to that. Because Twitter, like, Facebook will just be like, look at that. The algorithm will be like, okay, you're just linking to your own Twitter account, but it doesn't like register it or see it as a news story. So it's a good way to bypass it, but you just have to be more creative nowadays. But yeah, so like the girl's right, and a lot of the responses that she was getting were downright just ridiculous. Like people were like, oh, you can still like access like CBC, just go to the website. I'm like, way to miss the point, people. All right, like it's like she's not complaining that she can't go to cbc.ca and find info. She's complaining that she can't share it with people that she cares about. It's the sharing that's the issue. And people were just like, they were just being really, really dumb, which kind of bothered me. I'm like, this is just stupid. Why are people why are people like this? Why is the world like this? But yeah, so speaking of that, so like obviously a lot of Canadians, a lot of my sister and her friends were basically like, mentioning that. Guess what the Canadian government decided to do in response to all the complaints about not being able to share their news stories on Facebook? What do you think it was, Stephen? It's on it's on BBC.
It's on the BBC. Of course, I know how they're going to respond because I saw the article.
Yeah.
Trudeau criticizes Facebook over news ban amid crisis. Oh my goodness. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has accused Facebook of putting profits ahead of people's safety after it blocks news amid demonstrating wildfires in the country. Facebook banned news on the platform in response to Canadian law, forcing it to share profit with news outlets. Wildfire evacuees have said the ban has impacted their ability to share critical news with each other. Meta, Facebook parent company, calls the law fundamentally flawed. The Prime Minister, during a televised news conference on Monday, said the actions of Meta were inconceivable.
Inconceivable!
The company has blocked news on Facebook and Instagram in Canada since the 1st of August. The country's parliament passed an online news bill that requires platforms like Google and Meta to negotiate deals with news publishers for content. Meta has faced significant criticism from Canadian officials since then. On Saturday, Canada's Heritage Minister Pascal Saint-Onge said in a post on social media the company is blocking essential information for users. She added that this is being done despite the law, dubbed C-18, or the Online News Act, not going into effect yet. In an earlier post, she called Meta's decision reckless. So, Meta has called the law fundamentally flawed legislation that ignores the realities of how our platforms work. In the statement to the BBC, Meta said the law forces the company to end access to news content in order to comply with the legislation. It added that it has activated a safety check feature for its platform to people living in evacuated areas. But that's so dumb. Like, I've seen people post the safety check. It's like, oh yes, I've been marked safe. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, this is not helping. Be like, oh yes, this person is marked safe, but like we need to know, people should know what areas are safe and which direction it's going in. And guess what? In our modern culture, of our social media culture, we get our information, a lot of our information from social media. And thankfully, of course, Twitter is still, I'm not sure exactly how, but Twitter is not subject to this law. And so you can still share information and news on Twitter, which is fantastic because that, of course, subverts it. But this just pushes the idea even more that Twitter is the public space. And I know what you're doing, Danny. You're engaging with this.
Sure am engaging.
Let's address it.
Right.
Let's address it.
All right.
So Kissing Gonzo, who we've interacted with before. I remember I went back. Refused to condemn child kitty porn. So, yes.
Is that the one? Yes. The famous kitty porn person. I remember that.
Yes. So,
like, can you condemn it? Like, I refuse to engage in your games.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, but
so we should, according to this, okay, so we should not use plastics and pollutants. As difficult as that is, this is equally difficult to apologize to your grandchildren for polluting their water supply. And of course, now I need to scroll down. And their ability to live a meaningful and productive life. Again, reminders of conservative blindness. Be blind, it's okay. And so, Disa Kong, if you're putting 1 gram of garbage into a fishbowl and 20 other people are putting 50 pounds of garbage into it, does it solve the problem if you stop?
That's basically the issue. Like I always find the people who advocate for climate change, kind of like the green solutions that they try to tout, they never actually like stop and honestly address the fundamental flaws in their solutions, so called, and how silly they are. For example, when it comes to like plastic straws, because Canada has a plastic straw ban all across the country, which is stupid. Canada contributes like it was like somewhere like ridiculous. It was like in the 0.00 like something amount of like plastics into the oceans, and it's even less in Calgary. We're freaking landlocked. We don't have access. I don't know what wormhole the plastic straws go into in order to get into the oceans. So if you're trying to argue, which the Canadian government was, that we have to save the oceans by banning straws, give me a break. What a garbage idea. When it comes to like stopping or reducing our carbon emissions, whatever things, right? It's all virtue signaling, but it's virtue signaling that accomplishes very little, if nothing, because Canada is virtually carbon neutral, because the amount of carbon that we put out is almost, if not less, equaled out or canceled out by the amount of trees that we have. The amount of trees that throw oxygen into the air in Canada completely cancels out the amount of CO2 that we already use. And they never, ever, ever, ever addressed the elephant in the room, which was why are we trying to reduce carbon when we are 5% of the carbon emissions in the world? And then China, India, and so many countries across the world are throwing massive amounts of carbon into the atmosphere. Not to mention that there's carbon being thrown in from volcanic explosions, all this kind of thing. No, we don't care about them. No, who cares about China? Even though they're the ones that are causing the vast majority of the pollution, the so-called carbon emissions into the world. And so it's just it boggles my mind how little people think about this. They just don't care. They're just I need to be a prophet for the.
I think the main point that should be addressed from Kissing Gonzo is he is saying that we should not have any pollutants and no plastics. So you're advocating to go back to a lifestyle from what, early 1800s?
No, less than that, because they definitely have pollutants. They use coal.
What's something which is actually fairly relevant is people are saying about how dangerous the pollutants and how dangerous climate change is. Of course, very hard to prove that as a direct causal relationship. Something we can prove as a direct causal relationship is over the period of the last 150 years, we have seen a vast decline in the amounts of deaths related to the environment and related to the climates and related to weather. Because as a society and as we have learned and utilize technology and science to our advantage, which is a good thing, not a negative, a good thing.
Very good thing, yeah.
We have learned to adapt and grow. And we use that technology to make us healthier, to make us happier, and to make our lives better. And so, yes, you say that we'll be leaving this legacy of failure to our grandchildren. We'll be leaving a legacy where, we use the available technology that we have to make their lives better, and so they live safer, happier, and healthier lives. That's the legacy that we're leaving.
The funny thing is, people who make those predictions, you're going to leave a terrible legacy to grandchildren. Okay, your side, the green cult, that you've been making predictions for years, and they all suck. It's like the polar bears are all going to die. Nope. There's more polar bears than ever. It's like all of these cities are going to be underwater. Nope. They're doing just fine. And Obama is still building his mansions on the ocean, and Oprah is still buying property in Maui. It's like, oh my goodness, like all of the ice sheets of like the Arctic is going to be like completely ice free and all that. No, like it's like you can't even predict what's going to happen in 10 years, but you're predicting what will happen in 100. Like it's at this point, it's so ridiculous. You're required to have a level of to believe in absurdities, to be able to believe in the climate cult. And what they require, and this is why what they do is they don't engage in really like proper debate. They're just like, it's either appeals to authority. It's like, oh, the IPCC said, and they're super smart and they know everything, or they rely on like shame. They're like, you don't believe the climate change is real, and they clutch their pearls, and they like look down at you, be like, oh, you little plebe. They just look down on you, right? It's like, give me a break. Like it's just it's another. I will like legitimately say, okay, I don't doubt the carbon does impact the greenhouse gases. I don't doubt that at all. I don't even doubt that maybe it has some impact. What I doubt is the crazy like predictions that it like completely and totally is going to lead to the end of the world. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Like the people who say that are the same people, same kind of people that predicted that the ozone layer was going to kill us all in the 90s, are the same people that said Y2K is like at the end of the
and the same people that said that the Earth would face a new ice age in the 70s.
I know, it's like always something. Peak oil. Oh, we're gonna run out of oil.
Well, and of course, like when they refer to these things, they're like, oh yes, like the 97% of scientists. That is such a fraudulent claim, because when you actually investigate that claim, it says 97% of scientists say that the climate is changing. Okay, is that a good or bad thing? No. That's not what we're arguing. All we're saying is that 97% of scientists say the climate is changing.
We found a magic number.
That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Yeah, 90 like entire there's entire academic societies or scientific groups in the US that basically say, you know what? We should definitely encourage like young children to completely and totally like chop their breasts off and chop their dicks off and take chemical castration. No problem. It's like, you do realize that like there's scientific communities that have advocated and done horrible things throughout history, that they are not infallible, and that they can and often are influenced by politics and influenced by money and influenced by all sorts of things. COVID basically taught us that. People who have blind trust. I actually Kissing Gonzo basically said convincing you like it's like you need to be convincing us is like you need to be religious and idealistic. Like, no, give me a break. The whole climate change nonsense.
If they actually could prove
it's a religion
going to end.
Yeah,
like every single predictions of theirs has been wrong.
Yes,
and what I'm saying right now is I'm using the statement of common sense, because what you're arguing for is the mass murder. Because removing technology, removing pollutants as a sudden step is going to kill hundreds of millions, if not over 1 billion people. And so, yes, advocating against that is common sense. You don't need to prove that. Like, this is... Yes, I'm predicting the future, that if you remove all technology that we have, it will kill billions.
That is a very verifiable fact. Like, I'll give you some reasons why I super against the green religion, okay? One, because it's anti-human. It absolutely punishes people and penalizes people and ruins lives, because they basically like use it as an excuse to charge people more for something that shouldn't be charged more. Okay, people across Canada, across the States, across Europe are paying enormous amounts of money, artificially inflated costs for things that should not cost as much as they do. That is anti-human. Countries in the third world, from South America to Africa to South Asia or Southeast Asia, they're not allowed to develop their energy resources. They're being forced to invest in green energy, so to speak, and so they're basically being hobbled, and they're forced to burn wood and like coal, cheap forms of energy. So they're completely and totally hurting like the poorest and poorest of people. Like the whole idea that this green movement is basically a cult, and it's like uses fear to try to get people to follow these nonsense like policies that they're trying to push and all that. No, I don't believe it at all. I absolutely do not believe it. I think it's absolutely like classic fear mongering at the highest level. And the most perfect example I could think of that is that the biggest advocates for the Green New Deal and all these kind of like programs, they hate nuclear power. That does makes no sense. That right there is the biggest red flag. Like if nuclear power is carbon neutral. If you wanted to solve everything, you would stop advocating for wind farms. You would stop advocating for solar energy, for solar panels, and you would start advocating for nuclear. But none of them do. You know why? Because they know that if they advocate for nuclear, they'd solve the problem, and they couldn't they couldn't fear monger people anymore. It's garbage. So no, I'm sorry. I don't care how much this society 97, like, no, give me a break. It's a cult. It's a complete like myth, and it's a total hoax. I don't believe a word of it. These are the same people who argue for like the green energy kind of nonsense. It's all money based.
Yep.
Trudeau right now is getting rich. The government's getting rich from the scam that is like the carbon tax. So yeah, give me a break. Don't buy it at all. Most of the arguments are just like, they're just like accusations and insults. I'm like, no, doesn't convince me a bit. Doesn't convince me. Anyways, Steve,
let's
move on.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Maui fires, which they also blame on climate change.
It's always climate change's fault.
So Maui fires. Many children likely still amongst the 850 people still missing in Maui wildfires, governor says. Mm-hmm. Hawaii Governor Josh Green, no relation, said the children were among the 850 residents who are still reported missing as authorities continue to search for casualties. Amongst the aftermath of the Maui wildfires and the appearance on CBS's Face the Nation, Green told moderator Margaret Brennan that more than 150 residents were killed in the Lahaina wildfire. Green noted there was a possibility that many of the children who were missing were at home due to school closures when the fires happened. Maui Mayor Richard Bisson said minor the 850 individuals are still missing, noting that this is a decrease from the 2,000 missing individuals who were initially reported. Yep. Said that 27 of the 114 confirmed deceased victims have been identified. That's not possible, and that's what we're sharing here internally, is that it's possible there will be many children. Oh, that is possible. There will be many children. Green told Brendan this is the largest catastrophe and disaster that's ever hit Maui, probably that's ever hit Hawaii outside of wartime events.
Yep.
And so that's the reaction from the governor. Biden's reaction. Biden to Lahaina families. I experienced a house fire too, you know.
Yeah, you should play the video.
Oh, the video is just, it's so stupid.
I don't want to compare difficulties, but we have a little sense.
Oh, come on.
What it's like to lose a home. Years ago, now 15 years ago, I was in Washington doing Meet the Press. It was a sunny Sunday, and lightning struck at home on a little lake. It's outside of our home, not a lake, a big pond, and hit a wire and came up underneath our home into the heating ducts, the air conditioning duct. To make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat. But all kidding aside, I watched the firefighters, the way they responded. You know, there's an old expression. I grew up right across the street from a fire hall in Claymont, Delaware. And the expression is, God made man, then he made a few firefighters. You're all crazy, thank God. The only people who run into flames to help other people. And they ran into flames to save my wife and save my family. Not a joke. The smoke and the firefighters here can tell you sometimes smoke is so thick from the windows out, it was that thick inside the home.
Mm-hmm.
And we were insured. we did not have any problem, but being out of our home for a better part of a year was difficult. I can only imagine what it's like to lose your home.
Yep.
Yeah,
Makes it all about him.
What a complete doofus. It's like, imagine like, like running it, like, going to speak at a conference of like human trafficking victims who've been through horrendous, like, things. Be like, there was a time when I was little, I ran away from home, and I went to my grandma's, but then I came back home and had some ice cream, and be like, imagine being that completely like what an absolute a-hole this guy, like absolute a-hole. Like, not only did he give them the most massive middle finger ever when he, like, like immediately after tragedy was happening, he, like, people asked him, like, are you gonna do anything about that? He's like, no comment. And he goes to a beach. He goes to a freaking beach and ignores them. Like, this guy's record when it comes to like natural disasters in the United States is absolutely phenomenal. Like, we know what happened in Palestine, East Palestine.
Yep.
Okay. Massive train ecological disaster, massive, right? He completely ignored it, like pretended like it didn't happen, and just totally like the media silence and all that. And then the Afghanistan pullout, that was a massive disaster. And then then you have the Maui one. This guy has a abysmal record on natural disasters. He is an absolute like train wreck of a human being and as a president. And then you hear about what they did to President George W. Bush during the Katrina, like Hurricane Katrina, that flooded all of Louisiana, okay, or Louisiana, New Orleans, flooded it totally. They treated him like he was like the most uncaring, callous, cold person ever. When in reality, like he's the president, he can't go into a disaster zone when it's flooded. It's like, what are you talking about? You can't do that. But they railed him in the news like crazy for being uncaring. Or like President Trump with Costa Rica. Costa Rica had a big hurricane hit Costa Rica. He said so many supplies over there, and the media like ran for weeks about President Trump's the worst. Like, look what he did. He didn't even care about Costa Rica. He didn't even try. And then it turns out later that, oh wait, like there was a massive amount of supplies that have been left to rot in warehouses because they wanted to they didn't want to detract their like Trump sucks narrative.
Yep.
Who cares about the people that suffered? But yeah, Trump sucks, so it's worth people suffering and dying and getting sick and malnourished and all that kind of stuff. Yep. It's the Trump stuff. So it's crazy how this is part of the reason why people are pissed in the United States, because they see this and it's so in their faces. It's like taking like a giant pile of like manure and rubbing it in your face. They don't even care. Like, Biden literally couldn't care less. And the thing is, like, somebody said it before, I think it was Master Voltaire. He basically said that the electric company caused it, which is a good point. People have said that this is like the worst.
It's exactly what happened in California. Year over year, and it's because, and this is like kissing Gonzo. This is what happens when you try and shift to renewable, non-polluting technologies when they're not reliable, inefficient, and expensive, and we do not have the proper technology to move to these things. So we're using renewable technologies, and we do not have the proper batteries because we don't have the technology to build the proper batteries to store the energy for when we need it. And so because they don't have the technology, the electrical grid, which they've been trying to spend all their money to move to renewables, the electrical grid is expired and old and out of date. And then when they try and put the same amount of technology, the same amount of electricity, or even more electricity, because it has to be used more and more every year because of the increased demand for AC and such.
Being overloaded.
And then, of course, that shoots off from the transformer, causes a spark, causes a wildfire. So these are things that have been directly caused by overly ambitious green climate agendas.
Yeah. It's like climate change actually
in Honolulu, in Maui, these things, and like not even to mention the arsons that have been linked to climate activists, which are many, because they like to try and push the idea that climate change causes these wildfires, when in fact arson is a much more common wildfire starter than climate. Okay.
Oh my goodness, Kissing Gonzo. The fact is, your rivers are filled with plastic. I have been to like thousands of well, not thousands.
We don't live in China.
We don't live in China. We have the cleanest rivers like anywhere in the world. We went to a river the other day. I couldn't find a single piece of garbage in it.
Oh no!
Don't give me a break.
Even if you had a strainer and you put it across the bow and waited for like an hour, you would maybe find like two tiny pieces of plastic.
Oh my
god!
God!
We live in Canada.
Yes.
Canada has, thankfully, we have advanced technology to help us recycle such things.
Yes. Oh, what are the odds?
What are the odds that we have technology that helps us get rid of this stuff?
What?
Unlike places in China and other places in Asia where they throw it into the ocean. Yes, that's bad. We agree that that's bad.
Yes.
We don't like the fact that there's a giant island. We want to use the technology that we have to reuse and renew and recycle. I thought, isn't that the motto?
One of my favorite talking points, or like I heard once, is like 95%. I think it was like 90 or 95% of all of the ocean garbage or like plastic comes from like 10 rivers.
Yeah.
And guess where those rivers are not?
North America.
They're not in Canada. They are not in North America. That's not where the plastics is coming from. It's like, Mama, we have to like stop hurting the baby seals. Like, honey, we don't have baby seals. But we have to stop hurting the baby seals. There are no baby seals here, honey. I have baby seals. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I just want to make my custom baby seal leather boots.
I did. Yeah. Name that reference.
Yes. Good. Oh, I know that reference.
It's so
Points
good.
in the chat if you can name that reference.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, let's go to the. Is this the mayor of?
Yeah, this is the reaction from the mayor when they're like, "How do you not know how many children are missing?" Bud.
Oh, he knows. He knows.
He's just unwilling to say it because it highlights the depth of his failure.
Depravity.
I don't know.
Yes, you do. How many children are missing?
I wish I knew the answer to that. I would be happy to answer that.
You have no estimate as to how many children are missing?
I guess we can end this right now if you guys want. Sorry,
this is one of the biggest questions that the people of Lahaina have, but you don't want to answer.
It always takes one or two to ruin it for everybody.
Please, this is
our
we can say that about you. You ruined it for everybody.
You're the media. You can say whatever you want.
You're a disaster.
All right. Okay. Please.
You've been the worst mayor we could possibly imagine.
You won't even wait.
Respect.
Respect. It's just so ridiculous. It's like
He's
this
talking
guy
down to them like
has
they're children.
Well, like this would be if he didn't know. Like, say this fire started August 8th, so that's 14 days ago.
Yes.
If they didn't know on August 9th, August 10th how many children were missing, I'm like, okay, like that's
they know. They're a-holes. That's
and like
that's the solution.
After 14 days, you know how many children are missing.
Yeah.
Because the parents would go crazy.
Okay. Like the solution is really simple here, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
They're lying.
Yes, that's true.
It's so simple. These people couldn't give a rat's anus about any of the people that they're supposed to be caring about. Like here. Let's list the various mistakes that they've made that have like led to this disaster being horrible.
Yep.
One, the police have they blockaded roads, which led to a lot of people dying because they were literally left there.
Could not escape.
Okay, let's go another one. They refused to set off the emergency alarms.
Yep.
The warning alarms that would tell people, "Hey, danger's near." They didn't go off. Why? And why did they not go off, Stephen? What was the rationale for not?
I actually don't know why they didn't go off.
It's because he said, "I was afraid people might think it was a tsunami, and they'd run into the hills,
run to higher ground."
Like, are you serious? It's like, oh look, there's a giant spider.
Well, yeah, like all you have to do is just change the warning message. You don't have to have a siren. You just have to say,
fire,
evacuate, fire.
Yeah. Then the electrical problems in the power grid, like the power stations and the power lines and all that, they were setting off sparks. And the power company knew about it. They didn't do anything about it. The chief, or one of the people in charge, he refused to allow water to be released to fight the fires. So that wasn't allowed. That was horrible. What was some of the other things? That they refused and neglected to do any maintenance of all of the burnable brush all over the forest. Okay, altogether leads to a much worse outcome. Like, this was a disaster of massive proportions of the people in charge. Right now, the reason why they're not releasing enough children that are dead at this point, it's unless a super miracle where they have basically been stuck in a cave, all of them with amnesia, they're dead. I'm sorry. Of those 1,000 people missing, maybe a couple handfuls might be found somehow, because who knows where they've been, but they're dead. That leaves at least 900 or more people are dead. The reason they don't want to put that into the dead column is because then that looks bad for them, and they don't want to, these people are career politicians. This looks bad. They don't want to face the consequences of losing their little sugar train. And so they'd rather throw people under the bus than admit to anything. So it's absolutely monstrous what's going on in the States. The American government is it should be an absolute embarrassment of massive proportions, but no, they're trying to cover it up. It's like Charlie Kirk said, it's Chernobyl. It's the American Chernobyl, because it's a cover up. They're trying to cover it up, like the scale and the damage of that entire thing. So terrible, Stephen. But let's move on to the Canadian Chernobyl, which again, they're trying to cover this up.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just adding this. There we go.
Done.
50 years of failed eco-apocalyptic predictions.
Go figure. Huh.
That's why we doubt all this crap.
Yeah. I mean, extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Just like these ones.
Yeah.
Extraordinary claims. So, breaking from post-millennial, unmarked graves discovered in Manitoba residential schools turns out to be a hoax. No bodies found, only rocks.
Whoops.
Chief Derek Nepanak of the Minagozibe Anishinaabe said the excavation of the Catholic Church of the site of the former Manitoba school found no conclusive evidence of human remains. The lands the church is found on have been referred to as mass graves by outlets in the mainstream media. In a video on social media, Chief Nepanak said the specialized team of archaeologists that work with police were not able to detect any evidence of human remains under Our Lady of Seven Sorrows Catholic Church, which is the site of a former residential school in Pine Creek. He said that this should take nothing away from the difficult truth experienced by our families who attended the residential school in Pine Creek. This, of course, comes after the Catholic Church in the area around it have been implicated in several stories about mass grave sites in the Manitoba Nations. They used to occupy the area. Justin Trudeau more than once made a point to bring attention to the hoax and was infamously seen kneeling beside the so-called graves with a teddy bear in his hand. So 14 anomalies in the basement are reported to be possible burial sites under the church building as recently as July. However, upon excavation, nothing was found. The contractor who detected the 14 anomalies under the basement also claimed that 57 others around the area of Our Lady of Seven Sorrows Catholic Church were present. Chief Nepanak said this community was going to conduct a search of their own after the Kamloops First Nation had reported possibly discovered 215 unmarked graves at the site of this former residential school. And so we understand that over time, burial sites may be lost to the natural elements. Oh, yes. Excuses. But to bury remains under a building suggests a dark and sinister intent that cannot be unaddressed as we expose the truth of what happened in our homeland. Oh, so now they hid the bodies and then built. Oh, my goodness. Like,
it's
this
the
is
ultimate, ultimate conspiracy theory.
It's the ultimate conspiracy theory. Like, I was talking to some of my coworkers today. I'm like, I've thought about having a section, like a segment of the show, labeled "We Were Right," but it'd be most of the show. Because when did we call this out? I believe we called this out. It was like March. March
this was
of 2021, I believe.
Long time ago, yeah, because
It
there was
like pretty
open
quickly
reports.
after the claims of the graves were made, and then I remember we went over a short. I think it was
It was an article.
it was an article and then a video by Lauren Southern.
Yes, and there was a very long essay created by an academic who went through it, and basically everything he was saying was, by the way, these measurements can be a lot of things. Can be a lot of things, and like they're just assuming that it has to be one thing.
Oh yeah, assuming that all has to be bodies.
Yes, it's like, okay. I think Matt Walsh has the best take on it. He's like this chief when he was like talking about the results. He'd be like, it's like he should have responded by saying like, it's like, ooh, we found no dead bodies. Woo! Like excited, right? Like, thank goodness no children were like mass murdered and all that. Instead, his reaction was more akin to like, oh, we found no dead bodies. How sad. It's like it's like the opposite, right? Like it's almost like they know what an incredible lie this was. It's a hoax. It's insane to me that this could potentially be one of the most massive like hoaxes in Canadian history. And the Trudeau, by the way, Trudeau is no slouch when it comes to like hoaxes. Like he has participated in more like complete hoaxes than I can remember. Remember that one hoax, Stephen, about that little girl who like apparently had
hijab scissor girl?
Yeah, somebody like cut her hijab and all that, and Trudeau was like, "I sue for done this," and like you find out later, like, yeah, that was totally made up. No apology.
No, nothing.
No apology whatsoever.
Especially because he basically like accused a good portion of the population of that city of like contributing to Islamophobia. I was like, oh my gosh, shut up.
Yeah, yeah. The guy is a demagogue of the worst order.
Worst order.
The worst. there's literally like a level of hell just for him. Like literally, like it's like lowest level. It's like, oh, you're Trudeau. We have a special place for you. Come right this way, Mr. Trudeau. It's like, ooh, I'm special now. Ah! Burns in especially like pink flames. It's terrible. So yeah, so like the whole thing ended up being a complete and total sham, and yeah, but this is the kind of stuff that they were this is the kind of insanity that they were like pushing. But even more than that, they're not only were they pushing this insanity, they were also trying to make it illegal to even deny that this kind of stuff could happen. This is like, just for a good example. Okay, Kissing Gonzo keeps like chattering away on the chat and all that. But this is a perfect example of the kind of like hysteria and the kind of like dishonesty that thrives among the lunatic left. Okay, can you go to the CBC story, Stephen, the one that you pulled up? Yep. This is the kind of stuff that they advocate for. It's like not enough that you got to feel bad about the residential school, but if you deny it, oh, you should be punished hard. Take down those denialists. Read the story.
Sure.
Read the story now.
Fine. Lawyer says residential school denialism should be added to criminal code.
Yeah.
Eleanor Sunchild argues residential school denialism equivalent to Holocaust denialism.
Of course, because that's
Warning,
exactly
this
what
story
they're implying.
contains distressing details. A high-profile Cree lawyer from Saskatchewan is calling for residential school denialism to be added to the criminal code alongside Holocaust denialism in the wake of a recent interim report by Canada's Special Interlocutor on Missing Children, Mark Graves. It's the same. Lawyer Eleanor Sunchild told CBC, if you deny that's what happened, then you deny the whole residential school system and its impact on Indigenous people and the trauma that was created from those schools. And the deaths, then, of course, that should be seen as hate speech under Section 319 of the Criminal Code, willful promotion of hatred or anti-Semitism, unless in the private conversation, could lead up to 2 years in prison. This includes condoning, denying, or downplaying the Holocaust. Sunchild represented countless residential school survivors and most notably Colton Boushie's family. Oh, she represents... Oh my gosh, do you remember that trial?
Which trial?
Colton Boushie and the Gerard Stanley trial. Do you remember that story?
No, tell me again.
Okay. Basic background of that story.
Okay.
So, Colton Boushie was... his friends got hopped up on a bunch of alcohol and a bunch of drugs.
Okay.
Went to Gerard Stanley's family farm.
Okay.
Tried to steal Gerard Stanley's truck. He came out with a loaded shotgun.
As he should.
As he should. And fired a shot into their truck. Not at them, but into their truck. And Colton Boushey was asleep inside the truck because he was hopped up on a bunch of drugs and he was drunk. And because he was asleep in the front seat of the truck, and this is like 2 a.m, and so it's dark, he shoots into the truck as a warning shot, and that kills Colton Boushey. Completely unintentional.
Yep.
But, and then the entire thing was trying to push the idea that Gerard Stanley was this hateful, anti-indigenous person who purposely killed Colton Boushey because he hated natives. And so this is the kind, like, that was the argument that Sunchild made. It was completely despicable. Because Gerard Stanley, like, all he's doing is making a concerted effort to be like, get off my property, I don't want to hurt you, but I will if necessary. And then, completely unbeknownst to him, this person was in the front seat. Like, thankfully he was I forget exactly what was the outcome. I'll quickly click on the link. He was acquitted. Thank goodness. But I remember Justin Trudeau was like, "Oh yeah, like I wish we could have, taken a more direct role in this trial." Like he wanted the federal government to come in and convict this guy.
Yeah, because of course, they just assumed that he's guilty, like right off the bat. Like most of the people on the lunatic left, they're tyrants. They're pro censorship. They're pro like crackdown on any dissenters. They have purity tests. Anybody who's not part of their inner, like they're not part of the cult, they need to be excised from society, sent off to the gulags. Like there's a reason why people basically say they're communists. They're all commies. Justin Trudeau is literally a commie. I will not back down from that. He's a full-on commie. He believes in censorship of speech. He believes in disarming the population. He believes in it's unbelievable, these people, the way that they react. This woman basically wants to make it illegal to even ask questions, to even wonder. I wonder if those graves are really there, or if that sonar doesn't work. It's like, oh, off to jail to you. It's like the guy from Parks and Rec. It's like straight to jail. You question residential school, straight to jail. Like that's what they are. They're total tyrants.
Like, and we've mentioned this on the show, like talking about residential schools. Like residential schools, there were definite elements of residential schools which were awful.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I look at the residential schools, and the residential schools were trying to get to a good place, but they just had a terrible implementation. Like trying to get to a place where the Indigenous people of Canada are more integrated into Canadian society, are not exceptionally isolationist by their very nature, is a good goal. And trying to have a greater workforce, a greater degree of education amongst, like, the Indigenous are suffering because they have basically just said, oh, like, we're perpetual victims and we don't have to participate into society. And that hurts a lot of things when you have a large portion of society saying we don't have to participate because we can just claim victimhood and we don't have to actually work hard for anything that we do. This is a huge problem when you have 13% of the society. Like, I think that's the percentage of natives in Canada, but I could be wrong. That might have actually been the blacks in, I don't know the percentages. But the percentages of natives that do not finish high school is 70%. That's ridiculous. The percentages of natives on the reserve that are unemployed are 50 to 60%. This is ridiculous. And things like that was the goal of the residential schools, was to have more of them employed, have more of them educated. And because the system has been entirely condemned, now we'll probably never have these levels. What are you typing?
I'm making fun of Kissing Gonzo. He's literally instead of actually writing an entire sentence out, he's splitting it up into several pieces, and I'm just like, what the heck are you doing, man? Like, you're just This is the kind of nonsense that people do on comment sections. It's like, I'm gonna break a sentence off into like 5 pieces to sound like I'm being more edgy. It's like I'm just like, what the heck are you doing, buddy? Oh my gosh. People are crazy.
Oh my goodness. Anyways, so like
right.
yeah. There
You
were
were
bad
saying.
things that happened during the residential schools. There were also good things that happened during the residential schools. Not all
Yeah.
residential schools kidnapped children and kept them from their parents. Some of them
Oh.
actively involved their parents. Some
Yeah,
of
yeah.
them, the parents actively complained when they couldn't send their kids back to the residential schools because they were keeping them valuable skills. Insatiable, my flag is upside down because Canada is a nation in distress because Trudeau is a jackass.
Anytime
Is basically just a basic explanation of that.
Anytime a country is flying their flag upside down, it's a nation.
Yeah.
And we answer this question all the time. Canada's in distress for a number of reasons. Made is out of. They're disarming people. Freedoms are under assault. Like there's countless reasons why Canada's a country in distress. So yeah.
I'm not sure I exactly get to what you're referring to. Do you remember school group projects? Like I remember generally some school group projects. I don't remember all of them, but I remember some of them. But we'll address this as the show goes on. This is a very active chat, and we're really enjoying it. So,
how did you survive them to pass? Not just to get by, but get a high grade for group projects. I mean, the best way to do well for grades is you basically have to take charge. That's the lesson I learned with group projects. If you just like, oh, we'll just do whatever the group wants.
The group will never get anything done.
The group will never get anything done. You got to take charge. That's the best way to do it, because if you just take the passive route, you will get bad marks. People will not do enough work, and you'll just get chaos. So that's the way I like to say it. All right, do you want to move on to the next story? Like,
yes.
we can rush through these last ones because we have quite a few to cover. But yeah.
All right. So, Trump stories.
Just the news. Yeah.
It's just the news.
Big.
It is. Trump said he will be arrested in Georgia on Thursday. The arrest will mark the fourth such spectacle involving the former president this year. So today is actually an interesting day because we sort of have like the Canadian and the American stories reversed. Usually we have the American stories first and then Canadian, but I guess today is opposite day.
We just followed. Yeah, it's upside down day.
Upside down day.
Upside down day.
So former President Donald Trump announced on Monday he will go to Georgia to be arrested and face arraignment as part of the Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis's prosecution related to his efforts to challenge the 2020 election. Can you believe it? I'll be going to Atlanta on Thursday to be arrested by a radical left district attorney, Fani Willis, who is overseeing one of the greatest murder and violent crime disasters in American history. In my case, the trip to Atlanta is not for murder, but for making the perfect phone call. Oh my God. She campaigned and has continued to campaign to raise money. I guess I have to do this in at least a somewhat of a Trump voice. She has campaigned and continued to campaign to raise money on this witch hunt. This in strict coordination with crooked Joe Biden, DOJ.
No, gotta use both hands.
Oh yeah, both hands. This is all about election interference.
There you go. That's much better.
It will
actually even.
Apparently,
even Trump corrected his own son, Don Jr., when he tried to do an impression of his dad. It's like, you're not using enough hands.
That is actually funny.
Awesome.
The arrest will mark the fourth such spectacle involving the former president this year. Trump was previously arraigned with Jack Smith, the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. The former president now has pleaded not guilty to all charges, which those cases maintain the now 4 indictments against him, part of a broader political witch hunt designed to derail his 2024 bid for the White House, which is true.
It's very true.
Yeah, so the things that they're charging him under for this one are just stupid. Like they're charging him under RICO law, and I'm like,
yeah, the Georgia. Okay, this Georgia indictment is basically like, the way I like to say it. It's like, this is the "how dare you ask questions" indictment. That's basically like what this comes down to. Like, you ask questions about the election, you're going down, and like just come up with a million accusations and just love misdirection. It is unbelievable. I like to say that, like, if Trump went somewhere, and if Trump went and petted a cat, the liberals and the left-wing like lunatics would charge him with animal abuse. That's basically the way that you can kind of that summarizes pretty much every legal attack that they've thrown at him. I think like Ramaswamy had another question. It was from Jim Acosta from CNN. He asked him like, well, wait, hold on. He's been like, like hit with this 95 or something like indictments. You don't think even one of them is correct? He's like, we're not going to like, jump into this like, oh, there's so many indictments, therefore one of them has to be guilty. Like, that's not the right way to go. You basically have to like treat all of them as like innocent until proven guilty. But they're just saying like, well, there's so many, like one of them has to be right. I'm like, no, it's not. By the way, your camera went really blurred. There you go. It's back.
Oh.
It got blurry for a while and then it just
it
came
had
back.
like autofocus.
Yep. That's what you get for moving. That's what you get for moving.
Sorry.
So, anyways, like the Trump circus continues. By the way, did you hear about there's an article in the Atlantic? I didn't have a chance to look it up, but Charlie Kirk was talking about it. Apparently, they were floating the idea that using the 14th Amendment, you could bypass the requirement for any kind of criminal conviction to basically remove Trump from the ballot. And then Charlie Kirk was like, do you realize what would happen if you did that, right? Like if you actually thought that would be a viable way. It's like, oh, you don't need any kind of reason. I just don't like Trump. And so we're going to take him off the ballot. It's like, And well, then every Republican, like place across the country would do the same thing. Be like, well, we think Biden is a criminal and he's like done too many like foreign dealings and all that. So yeah, we're taking him off the ballot too. And he's like, eventually the chaos would become so massive that it would be mind blowing. These people are lunatics. Like it's unbelievable how much they, it's like they would literally walk over their grandmother's corpse if it meant that they could actually like gain power. Like they're power hungry like lunatics, and they cannot be satisfied with anything but power. It's gotten worse. I don't know if you noticed that, Stephen. It's gotten way worse. They used to be like, oh, this sucks that we're not in power. We're just going to be jerks while the other side rules. Now it's like, no, we can't even stand even the idea of not having power. They literally cannot even like, they can't relinquish power. They've gone mad. They're like that guy on the Simpsons movie. It's like, sir, you've gone mad with power. Of course I have. You ever tried to go mad,
without power?
Without power? It's stupid. Nobody listens to you. That's basically what it is. So,
my goodness.
Yeah, the Trump thing is like crazy. By the way, do you actually believe, Stephen, like that? Okay, do you think it's a viable statement to say Trump has zero chance of winning the next election? If he's people say no chance, but that's basically the same as saying zero chance.
No, I don't think he has zero chance.
Yes,
but like so much comes down to like the interpretation of how a lot of these states will because a lot of these states could potentially like these swing states, a lot of them are governed by Democrats, and
good old substance.
Like we're talking about Michigan, we're talking about Minnesota, we're talking about these places that are
Minnesota.
No.
Michigan, Wisconsin, Michigan.
Wisconsin is still run by Wisconsin
Pennsylvania.
has. I'm fairly certain Wisconsin has a Democrat governor.
Yeah, but they also went Trump in 2016, and they were not that far. They were close in the last election.
Yeah, Biden will cause a nuke attack on the U.S. That's possible, but I
mean, he will launch he will possibly like lead us into World War III. So I actually agree in that sense.
Like it's
by the way, did you guys hear about how China? There's a lot of like economic turmoil, and that they're predicting that China's going to go into a massive recession, which again leads into the idea that if they get a little panicked financially, then the chances of them attacking Taiwan go up. And so it's like we better almost like this next 2 years are gonna be nuts. They're gonna be absolutely nuts. Like the Democrats, if you think that this is like all they've got as far as like the craziness, this is bad.
And
but like they're gonna pull out all the stuff. They would literally like rather burn the house down than turn it over to like the other side.
And of
That's
course,
how
talking about the the things that the Democrats and the left will do.
Mhm.
Like let's talk about bring back
The
COVID
lunatics.
mandates.
Of course.
Because those are, of course, insane. Atlanta-based
Yeah.
Morris Brown College said they are reinstating COVID mask mandates.
Oh, boy.
So Atlanta-based Morris Brown College announced that the school is reinstating its COVID mask mandate for the next 2 weeks as a result of positive cases at the Atlanta University Center, the historically black college, not really relevant, posted a note on its official Instagram account noting the protocols would be in effect for the next 14 days. This includes a requirement for mask wearing by students and employees, physical distancing, contact tracing, and other significant efforts to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Or as, Viva Fry. I love his phrase for COVID-19. The spread of my Sharona Cyrus amongst the population on the Atlanta campus.
Nice.
So,
the China virus.
It's China virus because it's from China.
From China. It's China.
Yep.
This
is funny. This is what endemic means. It doesn't go away. Yes, it won't go away. But it also means that, fatality rates are down. It spreads easily because it's less deadly than the flu.
Less deadly. And amazingly enough, it's like, if only we had a preponderance of evidence regarding masks during COVID. Like, you would think these people have done like, no, I have way too high standards for these people. Like I was like, you remember how pissed I was that Alberta Health Services refused to drop the freaking mask mandates. And I was like, you guys are freaking morons. How can I go into a hospital and have any amount of confidence that anyone there has even the slightest amount of intelligence when they're all wearing masks all the time? I was like, I can't have confidence that you know what you're doing medically when you're wearing a mask, trying to stop a virus. I'm like, nothing.
Yeah.
How can
I always go back to that one meta-analysis, where it's just like we analyzed mask studies, mask reports over the past 40 years on these. Oh, what are they? CRTs? Not CRT studies, but
I know. Yeah.
Dang it. Clinical trials, or RCTs, randomized clinical trials, randomized control trials. There isn't a single randomized control trial that shows any positive impact to wearing masks. Not one. Over the past 40 years that have been releasing RCT studies on mask usage. Not one. And so if we try and people are like, oh, no, like RCT studies, they're not good enough for mask usage. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? How are they not good enough for mask usage? Like, that's not how that works.
People don't understand the hierarchy of studies and how, what the best ones and worst ones are.
Or they say that they understand the hierarchy of studies, and they're just like, well, we know that those are the best studies, but not in this specific. It's just like,
yeah. Suddenly it doesn't count. Not in this case, because why? Because it's devastating to my case.
Yep.
That's why. Dear Lord.
Suddenly, a new light came over me.
Yeah. My favorite thing is like the one guy I used to work with, like having, and he was like, there are no studies that prove that masks don't work against viruses and COVID. I'm like, none? He's like, no, there are no studies that prove the opposite. I'm like, how much research have you done? It's like, well, I've done lots of research. I spent the whole night and I just did a deep dive. One night. You did but you couldn't find a single study that proves it wrong. It's like, no. Okay, so I show him an article showing him like over 150 different studies that argue masks don't work against viruses. And he's like, well, I'd have to look at all of them. I'm like, but you do admit that there are studies that say the opposite. He's like, well, yeah, kind of. Maybe. I'm like, come on! You just said there are no studies, and you can't even admit that when you're wrong. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like talking to a wall with these people. It's like a very pretty wall, but a wall nonetheless. What can you do, Steven? Other than move on to the next story.
I know. All right, well, because it's not just happening in Atlanta with post-secondary, it's also happening to Lionsgate. Major movie studio brings back mask mandate amid spike in COVID-19 cases. Major Hollywood studio Lionsgate has brought back mask mandates to nearly half its employees amid spiking COVID-19 cases. Summer McElroy, response manager for Lionsgate, announced the policy in an internal memo obtained by Deadline after several employees tested positive. They must wear a medical-grade face covering, which of course doesn't provide any extra protection as opposed to a regular mask, so it's all useless.
None.
When indoors, except when alone in an office with a door closed, actively eating, actively drinking, or at their desk or workstation, they're basically the same rules as before, but it's still stupid and dumb.
It's just like the magic rules. The virus, like it's like
it doesn't pass when you're eating.
No, you know what the virus is. You know how it works. It's like the ghosts in Mario. Like when you like look away, they start coming towards you. And, like you look at them, you're like they stop and they just pretend like they can't see you. They keep moving every time they turn away. That's basically what they are. That's basically what they're advocating. The virus is like the ghosts.
Do you remember
in
these?
What? Oh, hold on.
Do you remember these?
The nose coverings.
Those are so dumb.
Did you see the ones that are like the Muppet masks? I kid you not. They were like 2 masks, and they open like this, so they can eat.
Those are so stupid.
I call them the Muppet masks because they basically like open and close like Muppets, like Muppet masks.
Oh my goodness, it's just
people
so
are dumb. They are so dumb. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's just. It's sad, really.
Well, the funny thing is, like after they finally dropped all the lockdown nonsense, I remember thinking, I remember you and I talked about this. I said, like, it's nice. One of the nice benefits of seeing people around wearing masks when there's no mandates is it's almost like having a reading of their IQ, like over their head. Like if you see a mask on that person, you're like, yep, I can tell that their IQ is like below 100. You can tell, like it's low up there. And
well, especially if they're making their kids do it. And I've mentioned a few times, I'm just like, that's abusive. Like, because there was one person, I think they were in the grocery store or something, and they had like a 2-year-old, and they had their 2-year-old wearing a mask, and I'm like, yeah, that's child abuse. No.
Oh, I know. She got mad, didn't she?
She gave me like the biggest stink eye, and I'm just like, just give her like the semi-troll, but I'm not wrong face.
It is child abuse.
Oh yeah,
like absolutely, yeah. Because you're actually causing like legitimate harm to your kid. You don't know you're causing harm to your kid, but you are. It's like the parents who like dress their little like girls, like little 6, 7, 8-year-old girls in bikinis, and let them walk around like in a pool and whatever else, like wearing bikinis, all that. And I'm like, you're setting them up, right? You're setting them up for all sorts of problems. And when they actually become teenagers and actually start like becoming young women, you're gonna regret it so horribly. That's gonna go downhill really quick. And I know like a few people who regretted it horribly when their kids like suddenly started coming of age into puberty, and they're like, oh, I shouldn't have made shouldn't have allowed them to be wearing like very tiny bikinis. I'm like, yeah, go figure that was a bad idea, huh? Jeez. Anyways, we're gonna end on some good news, Stephen. Our good friend Andy No, who is the bomb. He's like the what's it called? The OG.
So,
he's the OG.
I will address this.
What's going on?
Like, because Kissing Gonzo keeps mentioning this report saying that 69% of all animals.
Oh, it's nice. He's actually using full sentences right now.
I know,
it's putting him into like. But, it's nice.
So, like what the WWF fails to mention, I'm actually reading about this now. So, no, we have not killed 60%. So this is the best way to address the distinction.
Oh, I'm gonna take a guess. I'm gonna guess they're lying with statistics. Is that kind 100%.
Of deal? 100%.
Yeah. What they do.
So to understand the distinction, imagine you have 3 populations: 5,000 lions, 500 tigers, 50 bears. 4 decades later, you have 4,500 lions, 100 tigers, and 5 bears. Those 3 populations have declined by 10%, 80%, and 9% respectively, which means on average you have a decline of 60%. But the total number of animals has only gone down by about 1,000, which is a decline of only 17%. That's the kind of
lying with statistics.
It's like we haven't lost 60% of species. We haven't killed more than half the world's wildlife population.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, this is false. This is lying with statistics, and this is why we're saying that if they say
now.
they're saying you're speculating now. No.
Yeah.
Like, this is called addressing your false claim during the show because it's something that I can do when I have some time. This is why we don't tell you, oh, you need to provide a source for every single claim that we make on the show, because it's easy to find sources when you know how to look for things. Yes, and of course there's also the WWF, which of course, when they say that they've lost 60% of animal species, that means their donations increase. So when you have something which increases your donations, that is a bias, because then you're biased to push something that's false.
Called
Yes,
the conflict
of interest. So I don't know if you know that, Kissing Gonzo, but you should probably learn it.
By the way, it's okay. I do want to address the idea, like, you know, that what was you say? Like, it's a that it was a bad source, logic failure. It's not. No, dismissing something because you're like, oh, that's from the New York Post, I can't listen to them, or that's post millennial, I refuse to even read it. I'm like, that's a proper, like, you know, critique. Be like, yeah, that's a genetic fallacy. Refusing to read something because it's from the wrong source. However, like, you know, like, these guys were actually criticizing the problem of the conflict of interest, which is a valid critique of the source. If your source has a vested interest in seeing this this topic or this thing become, like, you know, more talked about, then yeah, of course you're going to see, like, you know, that's going to be a bit of a compromised source. So, like, it's yeah, this requires so much more time to be able to do. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I find it almost like not
Kissing Gonzo. Like, if you want to join us, because I think are we gonna, okay, we have to decide this. Are we gonna do the
Thursday?
So we'll do it this Thursday. Yeah,
sure,
this Thursday is the open mic night.
Join.
Yeah, we have it every one Thursday a month. Usually we do it on the last one, but if you want to join and have your say, go for it. Don't care.
Bring it.
But every single leftist that I've invited on the show has always disappeared. So
we have the Tim Pool effect.
Yeah, I don't have too much hope in that. So, anyways, let's talk about Andy No.
Andy No.
So, from Andy No, judge awards Andy No $300,000 in damages over 2019 attack in Portland.
Nice.
So, senior Andy No is awarded $300,000 after three alleged Antifa defendants failed to defend themselves in court as part of a lawsuit that accuses them of assault during a 2019 protest in Portland. Multnomah County Circuit Judge Shanpon Sinlapasai divided the damages amongst the three defendants who did not show up to defend themselves. The trial, which took approximately 1 hour, featured No giving his unchallenged testimony. Oregonian revealed that the three accused in the case are Madison Allen, Catherine Berlea, and Joseph Evans, who goes by the legal name Samich Overkill Shot Deputy. Lovely. Court hearing was held in a virtual setting on Monday at the county courthouse. The three defendants were found in default by July 14th by the pretrial judge for not responding to No's complaint. They did not appear at the civil jury trial earlier this month. Post Malone reported that Allen, Belay, and Shot Deputy were allegedly involved in the brutal assault of No on June 29th. No was reportedly attacking the alleged Rose Antifa members. While reporting on an event in Portland, Oregon, the incident has come to be known as the Milkshake Incident. So this is good that he was, of course, given awarded this $300,000, and Andy No has been basically the number one target of Antifa for years, and so it's good that he's finally getting some of his rewards for standing against Antifa, because Antifa are the most clear, open domestic terrorists in the United States and Canada. They've committed countless acts of violence, several murders, a whole host of other crimes. It's absolutely ridiculous that the Canadian and the American government have refused to call them domestic terrorist organizations officially.
It's by the way, like the Antifa, BLM, a lot of these militant LGBT groups, they're basically a repackaged version of the KKK. And I'll say why. I'll explain why. It's not just like an arbitrary comparison. The KKK was the paramilitary wing of the Democratic Party, after Reconstruction, or during Reconstruction, all the way up to the 1960s, they did the dirty work that the politicians couldn't do in public. So they did in secret what they couldn't do, and they used terror tactics to terrorize, like the groups that they disagree with, which was primarily the Black community. Right now, this is the exact same thing, but in a totally repackaged form. They're the paramilitary wing of the Democratic Party. They do the dirty work. They do all they do domestic terrorism, and they are under the protection of the Democratic Party, which is why they never get hit, why they never get prosecuted, and why they never get covered in the media with negative coverage, right? They're basically they're the modern day KKK. Just people just don't realize how they're completely and totally in league with the Democratic groups. They have the same goals. So yeah.
No, but this is a very good development, especially considering that just earlier this month, Antifa was involved in jury intimidation, and that trial did not go well for Andy No. Portland jury finds Antifa militants not liable. I don't know why scrolling was messing up there. And Andy No attack defense attorney declares, "I am Antifa." So they reached a verdict in the trial of investigative journalist Andy No versus Rose City Antifa. So in which they found both defendants, John Colin Hacker and Elizabeth Renee Richter, not liable in the civil case brought against them. No filed a complaint in Portland, Oregon in 2020 claiming assault and other injuries over alleged acts of violence carried out by the Antifa, which began in 2019. So they have been accused of assault, battery, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Defendants Hacker and Richter allegedly work as Antifa doxers, which after identifying nodes led to a series of physical beatings on May 28th, 2021, were found by the jury on Tuesday not liable for any of these claims. Evidence provided during the trial, along with testimony given by both defendants, of certain no's claims in the complaint. So I believe this is a video of clear assault. It's very loud. Pelting him with rocks, attacking him. Yeah.
You didn't call him by name, right?
Punching him in the face.
Yep.
Oh yeah, not liable. Spray him. Yep. Oh yeah, not liable. This was shown in trial.
Yeah.
Not liable. Oh yeah, no issues. No issues. But this is the craziest part. So defense lawyer Michelle Burrows told the juror that not only does she self-identify as both a progressive and anti-fascist, she strongly declared "I am Antifa" and insisted on making herself an "I am Antifa" t-shirt, which she would wear after the trial. Despite Antifa's significantly recorded history of violence, she told the jury that Antifa's unfavorable reputation is untrue and depicted the organized militant group as activists fighting for social justice and civil rights. In defense of Antifa, she said resistance in this country has never been peaceful. That's not true. Defense attorney went on to say that journalist Andy No has dirty hands. She indicated that No is a doxer as well because he uploads publicly available mugshots of Antifa-affiliated individuals. She said that since the United States has an unregulated internet, No takes responsibility for the words he says on the internet, added that his conduct has not been pristine. She attacked his credibility and saying that he's a liar and provides half-truths.
That's not even close to
it's ridiculous. And this is the craziest part, is at this bottom part, and this is
the guy's face. I don't know what happened to him.
I think he got burned.
Yeah, clearly. But
anyways, this is the crazy part. So she's saying the attorney encouraged the juror to be mindful of what is evidence and what the attorney's been saying. I've heard allegations of things that have happened that are not evidence, but a lot of attacks against my client's credibility is. Oh no, this is the lawyer for Andy No.
Okay.
So he claims that he lies, he misstates. Did the defendants show you his actual posts? And the craziest part of all of this is right at the bottom, where they detail
what she did.
Oh, where is it?
Maybe search for the word.
Where was it?
Oh, he's floundering.
I am floundering. I'm floundering.
Floundering. That's what
Now,
happens.
here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Right. This is the craziest part right here. Before closing statements, Judge Sinaplasai informed the court that the trial's jurors have raised concerns about being doxxed and claimed that people have only been trying to find out their identities. The judge then enacted even stricter safety measures than had already been in order for the trial. After announcing her retirement, that this would be her last trial, Burroughs told the jurors that she will remember each one of their faces. She did not take the time to provide evidence as to why the two defendants should not be free from charges, but rather use the time to defend anti-fascism and attack No's credibility as a journalist. This line right here, she will remember each one of their faces. And she's like, I am Antifa, and I will remember each one of your faces. It's like, okay, that's clearly a threat to the jury. She's like, I'm not providing a defense, but we'll remember you. And Antifa's very violent, and I've defended their violence in this, like, to use for social causes, and you don't want to be on the other side of that social cause. And we'll remember you if you align against us. So,
remind me again how they're not terrorists.
Oh yeah, utterly ridiculous.
It's like the mafia. It's like a mafia movie.
I've just never seen such flippant. Like, she should have been the instant that happened. The instant she said, "I will remember each one of your faces," the judge would be like, "You're out, gone. You cannot intimidate the jury like that." Contempt of court. Yeah.
Easy.
Well, yeah, it's contempt of court because she's trying to push her narrative and trying to get the results that she wants because, oh, yeah, we could just threaten and intimidate the jury. Like, we saw this, of course, in the Derek Chauvin trial. They tried to do this during the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Antifa and the far left will try and intimidate, will try and threaten, will try and discourage people from going against them by trying to highlight these people and their families. And unfortunately, in this case, it worked. It's sad that it worked, but it did.
Yeah.
And we want to call it out because we want to prevent it from happening again. We want to make sure that people know. Like, yes, Tim Pool already called this out, and that was great. That was good for Tim Pool. But we need to continue to be on top of things. We need to continue to expose the lies, to expose the half-truths, to make sure that people are informed, so that people can make shrewd decisions. So you don't decide to remove all pollutants and go live off the land and encourage and make everybody else do it as well. Because that would not be a shrewd decision.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because right now we live in both the United States and Canada. And there's like a problem in both countries. We are both creating a society that is pro-criminal, where criminals are completely let off the hook, no penalties, no punishments. Most crooks, particularly like in major cities, they know they'll be arrested and released the same day, and they'll barely have to face any real consequence for even violent actions. So this is the problem. It's like it's not so much that you like what makes a free society or a just society isn't that you have that you do or don't have laws, but whether or not those laws are being enforced. That's what tells you if you have a just society. Because right now, what you have, especially in Portland, you have this like people know on the street. If I'm Antifa, I'm going to be protected by the police and most likely protected by the media and the courts. If you are anybody who's opposing Antifa, you try to resort to their tactics, they will throw the book at you and they will treat you like a horrible criminal. By the way, this is straight out of the Marxist handbook. And then finally, if you're like an innocent bystander, you're basically frightened into silence because you're terrorized by the criminals. And you're not allowed to fight back. You're definitely not allowed to defend yourself. So, did you see that story, Stephen? A little bit back, I think it was a Chinese family visiting New York, were first being harassed by these two black girls on the subway.
Oh yeah,
and then they got absolutely beaten, firstly, and then even afterwards, they actually said oh no, they're not. They're victims. I could only imagine the terrible things that they've had to go through that made them have to do such things. It was like you're like, are you like have you been brainwashed? Like my goodness, like imagine seeing somebody that got like the crap beat out of them, and they're like, oh, I'm the bad guy. And if I call them out, I'm even more of a bad guy because I have like Chinese privilege. Like, oh my god,
Chinese privilege.
My goodness, yeah, Asian privilege.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, it's already been over 2 hours, so we thank you for very interesting times in the chat. Of course, those who participated in the chat, anybody watching, you can of course join our open mic night that will happen this Thursday. We'll be getting going at 8 p.m.
Giggity.
So, no giggity. No giggity.
Giggity. I didn't say giggity. I said giddy.
Oh, I think you said giggity. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that is not going to be the topic of that conversation.
I don't know.
So that'll be.
I'm getting giddy. Giddy.
So yes, of course, you can join it. You can send me a message. You can do all sorts of communication, and I will send you the Discord link. And if you're a leftist and not a coward, then come on. Like, we had a conversation with a lady from Bristol, UK.
That was pretty cool.
And she disagreed with a lot of what we said, but she's like, I like your right to say it, and we can find things that we can find common ground on. I'm like, exactly.
Very true.
So, yeah,
those Brits definitely live up to the stereotype of being really polite. She was such a polite lady. Right, Stephen?
She was very nice.
Very British.
Anyways, so yeah, join on board. We'll have a great time. Discuss interesting things. We'll probably mention and show highlights from the Republican
the
debates. So
and the Trump and arraignment and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, whole bunch of other stuff. There'll be lots to discuss.
It's gonna be a crazy day on Thursday. Super crazy.
So invite your friends.
Invite your friends, your neighbors. It's gonna be a wonderful time. Wonderful.
All right. So with that being said, you can always check out our videos at YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble. Of course, the more censorious videos that YouTube would go after will be found on BitChute and Rumble and not on YouTube, because YouTube will, of course, take down any videos that go against their narrative because they're big tech. Then, of course, you can check out our blog and other content on theshrewddudes.com. And, Kissing Gonzo, we're just waiting for you to, have a ball, have some balls.
Oh, he's doing his thing again.
Oh, I know.
He's doing his thing.
Going on. It's all right. It's fine.
Just do the slow clap. Clap.
Let us know when you condemn pedophiles. It's all right.
I mean, someone has to defend them. He's the defense counsel for the pedophiles.
Anyways. So, and then, of course, you can check us out on our text platforms at Gitter, Twitter, and Facebook. Of course, we're most active on Twitter because of the three. It is the best because Elon has done great things with X.
Mm-hmm.
So, that being said, we always like to remind you, the Shrewd Dudes podcast, why be rude like Kissing Gonzo when you can be shrewd?
Nice little parting jab. I like it.
Nice little parting jab.
Of course, you
can join us at 8 p.m. Mountain Time for our open mic night, and that is open to everybody, even the cowards. So we'll see you then, and until then, as always, God bless.
My